Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for your patience. We just convened from our study session prior to our regular city council meeting. We are now moving on to our regular council meeting. It's Tuesday, January 26, 2016. We're at the Veterans Memorial Hall, and we're located at 29 Surf Street here in Morro Bay. Thank you. For the record, we do have a quorum. All members are present, and we'll call our regular city council meeting to order. And if we can first start with a moment of silence. All right, thank you. And if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we'll move on to closed session report. We have nothing to report from any closed session. And then we'll move on to mayor and council member reports and announcements. And I'll start to my right. Mr. Smuckler, if you'd like to lead us off.
Oh, sure. Just one brief one. And Councilmember Johnson announced this at our last meeting, but it is coming right up. And we have an exciting idea that is being explored right now regarding home sharing. And we all know that the housing crisis is really complicated and hard for a community of our size to have a really effective impact on. And we're trying, but it's a big hill to climb. And the concept of home sharing is basically about establishing a structure that helps people identify housing opportunities where they would share them with an existing owner or tenant and provide the structure for screening, some security, and matching, basically a matching program that is being managed and implemented in about 60 communities around the country. And what we're going to have this Saturday, January 30th, from noon to 2 o'clock at the Morro Bay Community Center is a free lunch provided by the Morro Bay Senior Citizens Incorporated and the Resource Connections Office to have lunch together and also welcome a couple representatives of home sharing programs in other parts of the state to present what they're able to accomplish with the program and talk about how one could be structured here for our community. And we are thankful to Ann Wyatt, who's an advocate for housing, affordable housing in the county. And she's helped put this together and invite the speakers. And if you'd like some more information, you can contact her. Her phone number is 296-0013. And once again, that's Ann Wyatt. And the program's free, of course, with the lunch. And it'll be, once again, this Saturday, January 30th, from noon to 2 o'clock at the Community Center. Hope to see you there.
Thank you. Mr. Heading.
Good evening. I have one public health announcement for you. There has been reported an outbreak of something called a novo virus, N-O-V-O virus, and it is a gastrointestinal virus that is going around mainly right now, hitting Santa Barbara County and San Luis Obispo County very heavily. Symptoms occur after about 24 to 48 hours after the exposure, and they're mainly gastrointestinal spasms, possibility of diarrhea, and abdominal cramping that lasts for 2 to 3 days, usually with no fever. And the reason I bring it up is I've seen a significant number of cases in the community, and I want you to think about the possibilities of how to prevent it. The virus itself will actually stay on surfaces like vegetables. If you pick up vegetables in the store and or if you touch your hand on your counter at home and happen to have the virus, it will stay on that counter for up to 7 days. Alcohol does not kill the virus. So when you use those little alcohol hand washes, And some of you will kill yourself with alcohol. No, it does not kill the virus. However, if you put a tablespoonful in about 5 gallons of water of bleach and clean your surfaces for anybody that may have been infected in your house, and or if you're worried about contamination, that's one way to get rid of it. Cleaning fruits and vegetables before you eat them is extremely important. Transmission is primarily from person to person by touch contact. You should wash your hands with water and soap. Like I say, alcohol, at least externally, doesn't do much for you. Internally, that's up to you. So I bring it up as a public health announcement, and you just don't want to be sick for 3 days, I guarantee you.
Matt? Christine?
Hi, yes. Good evening, everyone. Stay healthy out there. What I'd like to share with you are to report back from, first of all, my attendance as the Morro Bay City representative on the Homeless Services Oversight Council. You may, if you're reading the Tribune and following the stories there about the homeless situation and the shelter situations in the county, then you'll probably know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't, including council, is I've been asked to bring something back, which I will discuss at future agenda items tonight, but just the general report out is that there are many efforts underway in the county, various efforts, various communities about how to handle care and what services to provide for homeless folks when either the temperature dips below a certain degree, or also there are a day or two of prolonged rain. So you see that there are various responses, and the Homeless Services Oversight Council took a vote that was unanimous, asking us to return to our jurisdictions, including the county, and discuss this with our communities. So I do want to report that the Board of Supervisors did put this on their agenda for next Tuesday's meeting. So if, again, I'll be bringing it up tonight at the end of the meeting, asking, same kind of thing. Do we want to talk about this here in Morro Bay? And you'll let me know if we do. But at any rate, it would be important for all of us to watch and see what the Board of Supervisors discusses, especially that staff report and some things they may be considering doing. So that's a report back from my service on the Homeless Services Oversight Council. And then also just reporting back that I got to attend our Rec and Parks Commission meeting. I'm the liaison there. And we had a couple new commissioners that we appointed in, I believe, November. So I think they all showed up, which is a good sign. And they gave great service. And the commission took on several new topics or things that are kind of, I guess, refreshed. A park naming policy in general, they discussed that, and these things will be coming forward with their recommendation to council. They talked about refreshing the public art policy. Specifically, there was a recommendation there that will be coming forward to us to name the bike park the Bonnie Johnson Community Bike Park. So you'll want to watch for that. Also, they talked about the city signature events that we discussed tonight in the goal setting, and also talking about setting a city co-sponsorship policy, and then we're kind of diving into the details of facilities used by various nonprofit groups. It's kind of all over the map now, but the desire is to make sure that we work out really clear roles and responsibilities. What's the benefit to the city? What's the benefit to the nonprofit? And then we really try to find a way to work together to support all the great programs that have here. So I just want to thank them for their very active participation in the meeting. And that's my report for tonight. Thanks.
Matt?
Yes, I'd like to send out a thank you and a recognition to the Morro Bay Bird Festival. That was an incredible event. Every year, it just seems to be filled with so many people that are just enjoying and then watching not just the Bird Festival folks, but then the people coming to our town and knowing what that's bringing to our town in terms of revenue, but then enhancing and enjoying our environment. So I want to say thank you to them.
Thanks, Matt. I've got a report out from our SLOCOG board. We will be seeing there's discussion of a county sales tax initiative. SLOCOG is taking that on as far as doing some research on that, and as that moves forward, they will be doing some presentations to various cities within the county. Cities will be educated, have open discussion on what the state of our infrastructure condition of our infrastructure is for the county, and then the necessities, and whether or not this county is really willing to go into a sales tax initiative to fund paving within our county, and then it'll educate us on how that affects Morro Bay. So we'll be seeing that come forward, as we did talk about some things like that on our goals and objectives. And then I was going to ask Eric if he'd give us an update. We've had some discussion on how we interact with wildlife in the water, and there are some discussions going on with that and some educational components to that. I just wonder if you can give us an update on that.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Iron. So on January 13th, we typically try to get our kayak renters and bay tour type boats together once a year and go over some basic boating safety and weather things and the recent sort of topics of the day. We got them together again this year, January 13th, but we also add an element of wildlife awareness. We had fish and wildlife folks, state parks, most of our kayak renters, stand-up paddle renters, sport fishing operators here in town, the bay tour boats, had them all down at the yacht club on the 13th to go over basic boating and weather safety, but also wildlife awareness, education and outreach. State parks and fish and wildlife are currently working on some Morro Bay specific guidelines for specifically otter awareness. There's a similar program up in Elkhorn Slough up in Moss Landing that's very similar, that they're trying to kind of mirror that. We'd like in the future to extend this out to a little broader scope, being that there's a lot of folks that are out there that aren't renters, that own their own equipment and come down on the water, that don't necessarily able to enjoy the benefits of the meeting we had, but we're going to try and incorporate those folks in future meetings.
Great. Thanks, Eric. I know we've had different concerns from constituents and folks in the community about how we interact with the wildlife out in the water, so it was great to be able to address that. Thanks for that. And that concludes any announcements from council. And with that, we don't have any public presentations for tonight. And as we go into public comment, typically we open that up with a business spot. And our business spot tonight will be Jane Heath. Welcome. Please come up and give us a kickoff.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce my business to the citizens of Morro Bay. I'm a civil attorney providing legal services to individuals and businesses, primarily in the areas of labor and employment, individual and business conflicts, and employment and real property. The poet Rabindranath Tagore wrote, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. I was drawn to the law as a way to serve. I chose my law school, the University of San Francisco, because its core philosophy, educating hearts and minds for a better world, spoke to me. I believe fundamentally that each of us is given opportunities every day to make the lives of those around us better or worse. Whether we directly serve the weakest among us or lend our hands and talents to those who are struggling to succeed in this increasingly complex world, everyone serves. After 10 years as a litigator in a San Luis Obispo law firm, I'm excited to move my practice to Morro Bay. While I continue to offer traditional dispute resolution services, we call those lawsuits, I'm excited to add a new dimension to my practice. Modern life is complicated, whether it's a fence boundary, a contentious family member, a difficult employee, or a commercial dispute. Conflict is as inevitable as death and taxes. As my web address suggests, my law practice is focused on assisting folks with conflict. Conflict management is about addressing risk before conflict arises. That may mean changing practices that put you at risk for an action by an employer, neighbor, tenant, or landlord. Addressing growing dissatisfaction provides peace of mind and a forum for redressing grievances where the only path is not the courthouse. If you need to sue or you are sued, I can help you with that. But I can also provide proactive services to help you avoid confrontation, which inevitably leads to protracted struggle. An added benefit is that if you think legal consultation services are expensive, and they are, I assure you that litigation costs more. I'm also pleased to offer a series of free seminars for local individuals and businesses. The first of those will be on February 18th from 10 to 11:30 a.m. at my office. I have flyers in the back and cards for that first effort. We will discuss a few recent changes and trends in the law that employers, especially employers in hospitality and service businesses, should know. On Thursday of this week, the Chamber of Commerce will be doing a ribbon cutting at my offices, and I invite all of you and all of those listening to join us for a slight reception anytime between 3:30 and 6 o'clock. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jane. Welcome. And with that, we'll open up our public comment. This is public comment for items not on the agenda. And welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jeff Jones. I'm here tonight as your president of the Morro Bay Friends of the Fire Department. And I'm here with some really exciting news. Friends of the Fire Department was formed about 5 years ago. And since our inception, we've had community support to the tune of $188,700. That's a lot of support for our local fire department. And just recently in December, we had a great get-together, kind of a friends. We had our board of directors, who I'd like to have stand behind me, if you'll all stand. There are many of our board members back here.
Welcome.
And these are all people that are of the community, or involved in the community, that are greatly interested in our fire department and the great service they do. So the fire department's mission statement is to enhance the quality of life by providing exceptional emergency services. And our goal is to help them achieve that goal. So the other night in December, we raised just a little over $16,000 in additional community donations. And so we're here tonight to try to help enhance our fire department. We don't want to necessarily replace or supplant any of the generous funds that we're counting on you to start giving to the fire department in your next budget process. And I know our city manager is loving this comment right now. But we think it's a fantastic fire department that does need tremendous care and feeding. So we have a check tonight. We'd like, if I could ask the fire chief to come up. And Chief Knuckles, we have a check tonight for worth the paper it's printed on, for $15,525, and this is to help the fire department purchase some hands-only CPR mannequins. I know they have a goal to teach 500 citizens in Morro Bay CPR this year, so this should help you achieve that goal. Additionally, I know he's always got a laundry list of stuff that he wants, including defibrillators and I don't know, all that advanced medical stuff that he always is talking about. So again, Chief, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your help. Thank you. And I can urge you to continue supporting this fine organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Thanks to the board and all your volunteers.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Rigmore. I wish I had a $15,000 check to give someone, but I don't. So I forgot my reading glasses. Okay. Here at the Vets Hall, there's something called Mind Walk every Monday morning. So yesterday I saw all the people streaming down here, so I decided to check it out, and it was amazing. I was glued and learned so much. It was a full house, so probably no advertisement is needed, but I figured many who are watching Channel 20 about the city meetings might not know about these Monday educational forums with amazing speakers. At least last Monday on rattlesnakes. This Monday coming up, the speaker is John Diodati on water and drought. That does not sound too exciting, but so did not the rattlesnake topic, and it was incredibly informative. Maybe in the future, I thought, we could suggest to the group a topic on sea otters and some of the other sea mammals, snowy clovers, etc. So every Monday at 10:15 here at the Vets Hall, different topics, and looking at the list on what's coming up, at least it looks exciting to me, and it only costs $3. Thank you.
Thank you, Rickmore.
Good evening, council members. Ken Vesterveld, resident of Morro Bay. Topic I'd like to speak to you tonight is strictly, respectfully, and my words and unsolicited. You're now in negotiations with the police department. In the 21 short years I've been here, 15 of those years I have volunteered with the Morro Bay Police Department. Over those years, I have seen many, many good ladies and gentlemen have to leave, not have to leave, but their choice was to leave because of pay scale. In the 21 years, Morro Bay has always been at the bottom of the pay scale for the county, for the agencies. Presently, they are truly at the bottom of the scale for the county. These are the men and women who work 6 months a year at nights, the men and women who work vacations, Christmas, New Year's. These are the ladies and gentlemen that have to go to family members and tell them that their loved one has passed away. I have seen and experienced police officers being spit upon, fought with. I've seen the lady police officers have heard being called everything that you can think of, and actually embarrassing when you're standing there and have to listen to it. All I'm asking is to negotiate fairly and bring them up to where we should be in the 21st century. Not always at the bottom. As you noticed, when we hire upper management, we don't always go for the low-paying person, do we? We get them with quality. And that's what we have here. Every one of them are quality persons who live here. Nobody that I know of owns a home here in Morro Bay. They lease or they have to travel many, many miles. So I appreciate your consideration respectfully. And also coming up here pretty soon, acquaintance in the back here, Roger Ewing's birthday's coming up, so happy birthday to Roger. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and friends at home. My name's Keith Taylor. I'm a resident of Morro Bay. I'm on the Friends of the Fire Department. One thing that Jeff didn't talk about was that we're a 501c3, so any donations to us is tax-free. Now I'm speaking as a individual. I have to thank the chief and Captain George Reese and Captain Todd Gailey, because yours truly set a fire in his house, okay, and which I've never had happen before, and I wouldn't have probably burnt down except my dog started barking. I opened up the garage door and there's like 4 or 5 foot flames. So I grabbed the fire extinguisher and just shot the heck out of it. I put it out. So now I'm on the thing and I'm doing 911. When you get old, or no, as a mature adult, you get a little confused. I finally got him. And I wasn't smart enough to put on the stopwatch, see how long it took, okay, because I'm on the north end there. But they got there, it seemed like in 4 minutes. You know, it could have been 6 because I was just like, ugh. But the thing that was so neat about them is they came in and they're so professional and so, you know, they calmed me down because the adrenaline was rolling and I was just shaking and everything. And as a citizen or client or customer or whatever, they just were so good. They calmed me down. They were worried that because I shot this chemical thing off in there, you know, your lungs and all this stuff. But I just want to give kudos to these people and all the people that were there because it seemed like there were 20 of them, okay? It wasn't that many, but because we don't have that many. But they went through the house. They checked all the walls, and the fire wasn't that bad, okay? I'm exaggerating, but to me it was like huge, okay? But I just want everyone to know how lucky we are to have this fire department. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith.
Good evening. My name is Robert Davis. I live in Morro Bay. The Morro Bay Citizens Bike Committee would like to invite interested people to our meeting next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, February 2nd. We're going to talk about such things as the city's goals and objectives for bike projects, the Amgen Tour of California Stage Start, which is going to be here in Morro Bay on May 18th. Some new Share the Road bike signs on State Park Road. We will have a report on the July 4th bike parade and some information about the Caltrans project to install a rumble strip on 42 miles of Highway 1 from San Luis Obispo to San Simeon. Again, that is Wednesday, February 2nd, from 5 o'clock until 6 o'clock at the Morro Bay Community Center conference room. Our motto is, you can't ride your bike and not smile.
Thanks, Red. Anybody else for public comment?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff. My name is Robert. I'm from Grover Beach, California. I'm here tonight to encourage you on your styrofoam ban. My wife and I are involved heavily in getting styrofoam banned, and our desire is to get it banned in the whole county. Tonight, you're reading, I see you're having a reading tonight, but we can't stay. We're going to go to Arroyo Grande and present our case to them as well. We were involved in Pismo Beach's ban, and once we get Arroyo Grande, yourself, and Grover Beach will be our next target. We're going to go for the whole county. Once we get 5 cities, we can do the whole county. So the whole county could be styrofoam free. And so I might be telling you some things you already know. But styrofoam, which was created by Dow Chemical in the 1970s as an insulation product, fast food container, coffee cups, even household construction products were made out of styrofoam. Styrofoam cups and containers contain styrene. Styrene can leach out of the foam food containers and cups when the food is hot. By 1986, styrene was found in 100% of all samples of human fat tissue taken as part of a U.S. Environmental Protection Agency study. Researchers found that styrofoam cups lose weight when in use, meaning styrene is oozing out of those cups and containers, and we're consuming them. Toxic effects due to accumulation of styrene in the tissues of the brain, spinal cord, and nerves result in fatigue, nervousness, difficulty sleeping, and other acute or chronic health problems associated with the nervous system. However, in spite of all these, styrofoam continues to be widely used. Apart from the dangers styrene poses to human health, it also poses a risk to our environment. For this and other reasons, we are glad to see that you're banning styrofoam and adding it to the reading tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Anybody else for public comment?
Good evening. My name is Anita Schauer. Hello, Mayor. Hello, Noah. And I'm president of the Eco Club 5 Cities, and I live at 867 North 6th Street in Grover Beach. And what we do is we do zero waste community events, which means when we recycle everything at an event, we make sure that our footprint to the landfill is very, very small. Please remember that our local landfills bury styrofoam. They don't want to spend the money to have someone come up here and take it away on a flatbed truck or inside of a container, because it costs a lot of money, and our landfill, of course, is on the New York Stock Exchange, and we don't want to do anything about that. When we do our events, the only thing that goes to the landfill now is styrofoam, baby diapers, and cigarette butts. Food stuff goes to a compost park. We have it picked up, and that's terrific. Items that may be recycled are placed in the blue recycling dumpsters at our events, and that's terrific. Bottles and cans are redeemed for cash, and that is more than terrific. What should you do about styrofoam? Well, you're already taking the necessary steps forward, but we were asked to be here and to say something, and that's why we're doing this. Realize, please, that it's a huge problem. It's banned from events, as Robert said, in San Luis Obispo and Pismo Beach. If you're worried that it's going to drive vendors away, it does not. We've been working Pismo Beach's events for about 5 years now, and we've never had a vendor leave because we've asked them to bring something other than styrofoam. The vendors all circulate. We see them at every event we do. We do events Paso Robles, Templeton, San Luis Obispo, the county, Nipomo, Arroyo Grande, Grover Beach, and Santa Maria. We see the same people all of the time, and no one is not doing their vendor obligations to the cities. Compostable products are friendly to the environment. They may be recycled. They're not taken to the landfill. Styrofoam is nasty. It's a product of Dow Chemical Company. It breaks down into tiny pieces that are ingested by animals, and that's terrible. Dow Chemical made $58.2 billion in 2014. And if you're a consumer of styrofoam, if you buy styrofoam, you've helped them go to the bank. Their products include chemicals, plastics, crop technology, and performance chemicals. Performance chemicals are napalm and Agent Orange and styrofoam. You may consider this an urgent request to act, especially with the human and sea life so abundant here in Morro Bay. You want to be known as being friendly to the environment. You want your citizens and tourists to know that Morro Bay supports the ban on styrofoam because it's just nasty. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we still have public comment open. For anybody who'd like to speak, please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Roger Ewing. I'm a Morro Bay resident. And with all due respect to our city attorney, at your last meeting, a Morro Bay citizen got up to address a couple of items on your agenda. And in concluding, she took it upon herself to announce her candidacy for mayor in the upcoming election. And before the next speaker could come to the microphone, our city attorney interjected that no one had the right to speak on political matters at a city council meeting. It's not city business. On the directness of that statement, he may be true, but this is Morro Bay. And we have held a very long-held belief that anybody could come before you, speak their mind, and or announce their candidacy for city office. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, some of you may have stood here and done exactly that. Morro Bay is very laid back. We're very inclusive. And we're very tolerant of differing points of view, even those we don't agree with. But the one thing I've learned in observing Morro Bay politics is this is the people's podium. This is where the people's voice is spoken, and this is where it's heard. And that, in and of itself, is the city's business. It's how the people and you communicate together. It's guaranteed by the First Amendment, the core of our democracy. For without the First Amendment, we have no democracy. For without freedom of speech, we have no purpose in having you sit there. Your agenda says public comment. It doesn't say public comment as defined by the city attorney or anyone else for that matter. So please allow everyone to speak their mind, because that's the hallmark of Morro Bay and it's the hallmark of our democracy. And I think I've said enough. I thank you for listening and have a good meeting. And I do have respect for you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Happy birthday. Oh no, that.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Ken.
Anybody else for public comment? We have a couple items later on in the agenda. If folks can't stay for, we have the last item on the agenda is the marijuana ordinance reading. And if you can't stay for items later on in the agenda and you'd like to speak to them now, please do so. Otherwise, we'll close public comment. We'll move on to our consent agenda and then our business items. Are there any items that people can't stay for later? Then I'll close public comment and I'll bring it back to council for any comment on public comment. And to my right, John, do you have anything on from public comment? Or any comments from public comment?
Yeah, no? Just a real quick comment thanking the individuals that support our fire chief and fire department, and for the great work that they do. Thank you so much for your contribution. And this isn't the first year, it's many years that that's happened, and we appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anything?
I would just like to say that regarding Mr. Ewing's comments and the discussion of public comments and what's appropriate for discussion about campaigns and so forth, that we did agendize that at the end of last meeting. So we'll be having a conversation about that and look forward to hearing more comments and making a decision then.
Yep. Thanks, Noah. Anybody else? Seeing none? Okay, we'll move on. And thanks for that. So we're moving on to consent. On the consent agenda, we have 4 items, and I'd like to pull item A3. Are there any other items to pull? If not, I'll take a motion.
Second.
So we have a motion to approve items A1, 2, and 4. Is that correct? Correct. We have a motion by Mr. Heading, a second by Ms. Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. And then item A3, let me just pull this. Item A3 is transient occupancy tax audit recommendation for 2012 and 14. And I'd like to just ask to continue this with the following request for information, a fiscal impact analysis for the cost, and also the scope of work for this. What's the expectation of scope of work for this audit? So whether or not there's the RFP or the contract may look like, or just a scope of work description, and that's my request. I didn't know if anybody else had any comments on this particular item, or if they had a different discussion they wanted to go on. But that's my request. And I'll look to my right. Any comments?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Eddy.
Scope of work in terms of the engagement and then the total cost? Is that what you're asking?
I mean, will it be for unlicensed vacation rentals at all? I just wonder how the scope of work is involved for this particular item.
Just want that here by asking the city manager to respond. Or staff, but...
Yeah, I'll ask Susan to start to address, please.
Thank you and good evening. What we've done in the past for the TOT audits has been to send out an RFP to auditors that are in the area, and we generally give them what we're looking for are finding new vacation rentals that maybe haven't come in and registered yet. We're also looking at compliance with the ones that are registered. And the issue that we found mostly with the vacation rentals that we had, or the ones that we looked at, it's people, like you and me. I mean, we rent our house and we write it on our calendar and we say, yeah, we rented it to this guy. And so the record keeping isn't as good as if they were set up with one of the property managers or something like that. So we're looking more to educate the vacation rental owners, the ones that are owner operated, and then also to make sure that people are in compliance and that everybody's playing by the same rules. So we would be issuing an RFP with that type of a scope, and getting bids back and see who we can who we can get to do that.
Noah?
Yes, a couple of quick things. One, just out of an abundance of caution for you, Mr. Mayor, knowing that you are involved with a vacation rental, is this an item?
Actually, ex parte, no, I'm not. That's been, I think, within at least a year for me now.
Oh, good. I just wanted to clear that up and make sure it wasn't lingering.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that.
To clarify, so you do no longer operate a vacation rental?
I don't have a vacation rental or a license for a vacation rental. Oh. Yeah.
You don't have a license.
I think those two are linked.
You should put those words in that order.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the issue, considering some of the audits we have had, and just covering some of the details of that. So those are my requests, but I appreciate that.
The other question I had was, does this relate to Airbnb rentals as well? Is that the way this is structured, just to confirm?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be finding people that aren't complying.
Yeah. Okay. I think it would be, because that's a fairly new conversation for us in Morro Bay. I think it would be important for us to, as we've given worked backwards in the Moss situation, and look to try to work forward in the styrofoam situation, to make sure that we're doing outreach and we're not appearing too heavy-handed, that we let people know that there are certain expectations we want to work with them, because these would be new actions that we're taking. So I think what the mayor's suggesting might be good if there's a way to structure this so that there's a little more forewarning and outreach that is mostly about coming up to compliance going forward, and making sure we aren't penalizing people that really are coming under a fairly new set of oversight and requests to participate, just as all the other vacation rentals and the hotels have in the lodging industry.
Thanks. Matt, Christine?
Well, I think in general, I'm always in favor of a good audit from the government side. I think a business side wouldn't agree necessarily. I know that they're onerous, so I think it can be onerous. So I think it's a good idea to do some outreach on it. I guess my question is, in the background, normally we do the audits because they're just part of what we need to do for good government. So I guess even though we're not recovering what we spend, we just sort of, it's kind of like a cost of doing business. That's sort of when I see that it doesn't really make, we're not catching a lot of people at this point. People are complying, and I think that's positive, but we're always going to have those expenses to have professional people come in and audit, and external people, which we want. But I'm wondering, Mr. Mayor, if your question is, so, I guess I can see it coming back to do some promo and things like this, or I'm not sure if it's going to come back, I guess my question is, are you just looking for some financial information to find out how much it would cost? I'm wondering what it is that you're pulling, and what we should see coming back that would meet that.
I think it's on consent, so we should be able to get through it, and was kind of hoping just to gather the information. But the fiscal impact analysis, and basically what is it going to cost, basically, and we're looking at some of the things in the staff report says, it wasn't really cost effective for one of these audits. So would like to understand what the cost of it is, and primarily the scope of work, to say, fill in some of the questions which Noah asked. How does it affect? Is it going to be just vacation rentals, Airbnb, is there language in there? And I think we've had the discussion with another audit on, hey, what is our methodology with some of these some of the audits as a result of MAS? And so I just want to have a little bit more description on what the scope of work is, that type of methodology, and of course the fiscal impact analysis. And just looking for support on that. Okay.
I'll add the comment about, I had noted in background also that recovery versus cost was always a loss. And so with that, I would concur.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, one of the things that we won't know are the costs. We would have to bid it and see what we get as a result of the RFPs. So it's not as if I can say we're going to spend $30,000 on it. I don't know what the auditors that'll bid will want to charge to do that, because this will be a much more far-reaching audit, in the sense that they'll be looking for non-compliant businesses as well, not just auditing the ones we have on our list. So this, I have no idea what this could wind up costing.
One approach could be for us to RFP this, get a number of proposals, and then we can present those proposals to you. It'll have the scope of work in it, it'll have the cost in it, and then make the decision from there if we want to do that.
Okay. That sounds reasonable to me.
I think that's a good approach, and I'd like to see a little more conversation about the outreach to the stakeholders and those affected.
Okay, Matt?
This is, fairly significant. In the last year, I know TBID, this has come up in terms of hoteliers, in terms of the TOT tax, who's paying what, and who's benefiting from the marketing of the various parts of Morro Bay. So in terms of what it's cost, I agree with getting the RFP out, see what it's going to cost, and then assessing the situation, because we have a lot of people that are innocent, because they're just doing it, like you say. But then some people are, so that'd be an interesting quantification.
Okay, great. So I don't think we need a motion for this.
Based on the conversation, I would suggest that a motion be made to authorize staff to issue the RFP and return with you with the results of the RFP.
I would request a motion as stated by our city attorney. Or so moved.
Second with some discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion by the mayor per the city attorney's language, second by Mr. Smuckler, and we have discussion.
Yeah, I'd just like to be explicit that we'd like to see an outline of outreach as well. I think it might already be included in that motion, but just to be clear about that.
Okay, great.
Could you expand on that? I'm not quite sure what you mean an outline of outreach.
Outreach would be how would we pursue engaging with those affected by the audits and communicating the expectations, how we could bring them into compliance in a forward manner rather than being punitive, looking backwards, as we work to with Moss, and basically make sure that new rules or new actions aren't sprung upon the people that are affected by them. So I'd just like to see a little bit more detail about how we plan on approaching that.
So the scope of work, basically.
Yeah, but I want to be explicit about the outreach side.
And if I could, really quick, so just obviously the outreach will likely come from the staff side. I think we've greatly enhanced our overall communications publicly. We'll probably put information in the utility bill newsletter, which goes to every property that has a bill, social media, press releases, and all that. So it'll be a very comprehensive approach to how we do that, and we'll be very, very, very proactive and early in how we're being responsive. And I think we did learn a lot from the Mass situation.
And just to add to that, we will send letters to every registered vacation rental first to let them know that it's coming. We did that with the business community as well with the mass audit, but unfortunately when they reached their little fingers out, they got people that obviously didn't get our letters because they weren't registered with us. But we will send out letters.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'd like to have that as part of the motion, because the RFP and the responses to that won't include that component, as we just heard. That'll be staff doing a lot of that legwork.
Christine.
And because we're bringing up the MAS situation, it brings back lots of thoughts about that rollout. And I'm wondering, when we do these audits, and what you envision moving forward is we want people to comply. So we're just asking them to comply. We're not punitively going back through the register and seeing that they've been operating for 4 years doing it and not paying anything. Am I correct? Okay. We want compliance, and we're going to tell them we need to get you to come in and sign and to become a licensed vacation rental.
Compliance is our biggest issue, and we really do want everyone to comply with our laws. And so, yes, that's what we would be doing, is going back. We would get them current, we would get them up to date, get them current, and have them moving forward. So it's not necessarily going to be, we'll be looking back at at their documents to see what they've been doing in the audit period, 12 through 14. If they have been active, we'll get them current. I guess there are a lot of things we'd have to talk about there, about whether or not we're going to go back and charge them their tax for the years that legitimately we do have the obligation to collect. Maybe there's another penalty amnesty that we put in place. So there are things like that to think about.
Okay, so, and I think that's what I'm hearing echoed up here, is that let's talk about it before well, I would just say, now we've expressed ourselves, and what goes into the RFP will impact who responds to the RFP and what the expectations of those companies are.
Sure.
Yes, and I would also say this will go a long way with some of the neighborhood concerns we have with people living next to newer vacation rentals that have popped up in the last few years. If we do it right, I think it could meet the need, but as long as the process is a good one. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes.
Maybe you should just continue this. I need to go. I think we need to go look at our municipal code, because what I think what I hear is, if our municipal code says that if you don't pay your taxes, then you have to pay your taxes and there's penalties involved, then perhaps the first thing we need to do is question whether we want that in our municipal code, or if we want to change our code to say that there's no penalties and you don't have to pay back taxes or something. I think I need to work through that with the staff, because what I've heard right now is perhaps let's only do audits that look forward, and if we identify somebody in an audit who hasn't paid their taxes, then perhaps we don't want them to do that, and we certainly don't want to do penalties. I think we need to go look at what the code says and bring that to you first before we, because that will affect how we craft an RFP.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask for a rereading of the motion, please?
And I will refer to our city attorney to reverbalize the motion for us.
I would suggest the motion not be the motion I previously said, but the motion is just bring this matter back.
Bring this matter back with but the language did include an RFP, so we'd go for...
Not with an RFP. We're going to have to bring it back to you after we have this staff discussion, and then you give us direction.
The current motion that was on the floor included RFP.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
What we're saying is withdraw the motion.
I would suggest the maker and seconder withdraw that motion.
Okay, so I would withdraw my motion, and I need a second for that. Sure. Second? Okay, so we've got a clean floor, and basically the motion would be to...
I don't think you need a motion. I think the city manager understands what you said, and you understand what the city manager says.
We're just going to continue this and bring it back with the information stated. Okay, great. Okay? Thank you. Are you okay? Yeah. Everybody okay?
Yeah, and I just want to make sure it's affirmed. I don't think we've made a commitment either way about how we want to decide on this, but we want to acknowledge that this would be a new action and a fairly new industry or component of a long-standing industry. And in that case, we want to make sure that we're sensitive about rolling that out and have the conversation before we initiate. And I think that's the lesson we learned in the Moss situation, and we had to work hard to rectify that, and we'd like to head that off and keep that from happening again.
Great. So with that, A3, there's no motion for that. We're going to move on, and actually at this point we can conclude our consent, and we can move on to new business items. And unless there's any other requests everybody's ready to go, then we'll move on to business items. And item C1 is discussion of major maintenance and repair plan, or MMRP, for the existing wastewater treatment plant for the next 5-year period. And
Mr. Keogh is going to join us up here to assist with this.
What a treat.
You can find it.
Welcome, Bruce.
Steal a chair. As we all remember, we started the major maintenance and repair program as we transitioned from the former project to planning the new project in 2013, and brought forward over the past 3 years worth of projects. And our recommendation is really to phase out the MMRP, because we're at a point where we know we can see the goal line from where we're at now, right now. With the completion of the 16-17 repairs, we are ready to go to more of a caretaker mode at the existing plant, basically routine maintenance, replacing only those components that really need to be replaced through O&M. If a blower goes out, we replace a blower. If a motor goes out, we replace a motor. But we're not taking on rehabbing concrete structures, putting in new headworks, that sort of thing. And Bruce, you might have something to add to that too.
Yep. I was just going to say that, that recommendation is based on the successful completion of the projects that the council and the district board have funded to date, the condition assessments of the plant and where we feel the plant is and kind of the position it is in for the next 5 years. And really importantly, it's based on the current schedule for completion at the new water reclamation facility. As Rob pointed out earlier, the MMRP was initially developed in February 2013. It has been ongoing for the last 3 fiscal years. And really the purpose was to perform deferred maintenance on major aspects of the wastewater treatment plant that had been deferred during the previous upgrade project. And the program was designed to ensure the efficiency and performance of the wastewater treatment plant while the new WRF is developed and constructed. And I think, it's really important to stress that we will continue to have a proactive operations and maintenance program, and I'll be the squeaky wheel here. Probably I'll be the big squeaky wheel. I know everybody is trying to be fiscally prudent in this, but I will definitely be bringing any concerns that I have in the future. We have a list of some of the projects that we've completed over the last 3 years. Probably the most importantly is the new headwork screens. I think that's going to buy the treatment plant components a lot of life over the next 5 years. Probably the best thing that we've ever done since I've been at the plant. We have cleaned and coated 2 of our digesters, so we brought some stability back to the solids handling process. We've done some major work on the chlorine contact tank, and that's kind of been an ongoing project over this last 6 months as we've sort of figured things out. We have rehabilitated primary clarifiers, and this year we have 2 ongoing projects, the interstage valve replacement project and the biofilter improvement project, and those should carry us through for the next 5 years. Important to stress that the treatment plant is not new. These projects have not made it new, but they should position the city and the district to have safe, reliable, and efficient operation for the next 5 years. And as I said, we will continue to bring as proactive an operations and maintenance program as we deem fit. The MMRP budget for fiscal years 13-14, we actually spent $328,000. You had budgeted more than that, I believe. You were close to $1,040,000 on that, but some of that money was rolled over. Some of the projects came in under budget. Fiscal year 14-15, we expended $896,000, and we had budgeted $1.2 million. And this year, 15-16, you have budgeted $465,000, and I'm confident that we will probably come in under that number as we have gotten good estimates on some projects, and we've tweaked project scope to try and minimize cost. So if you add all those numbers together, you'd end up with about $1.69 million over the last 3 years, and I think that number will be a little bit less based on what we spend this fiscal year. The future strategy for the MMRP actually is to phase it out and to kind of phase into the O&M aspect. As I pointed out, we will continue to have a proactive O&M program. We would like to fund those projects through the O&M budget for the wastewater treatment plant. The projects that we bring forward will be developed through annual assessment of the wastewater treatment plant conditioned by city district staff and Mike Nunley and Associates, who's helped us with the MMRP through the past 3 years. The estimated range for O&M cost is probably between $200,000 and $300,000 a year for the next 5 years. Currently, our O&M budget probably runs in the baseline is 120. It's gone as high as I think as 350,000. So I'm estimating somewhere in that 200 to 300,000 range should keep the plant operating at a reliable manner. Importantly, that budget and those projects will be brought to the City Council and the District Board for approval, so you'll have a chance to review the projects, you'll get a chance to hear why we need those projects, and then get a chance to approve or deny those projects as the case may be. The goal for this whole program has been really to balance existing wastewater treatment plant operations and maintenance costs while maximizing the capital for the new WRF. And as we, I'd point out a reminder that this is a very similar strategy to what the city and the district did during the last upgrade project. We deferred some key projects like the headwork screens and cleaning some of the digesters because we didn't think those structures would be needed in the new project. So we're following a similar strategy that we used before and that we were successful with. And with that, I would open it up to questions.
Thanks, Bruce. We'll start with Matt. Do you want to start us off with some questions?
Yeah, Bruce, one question looking at the MMRP moving with the O&M. And you were saying, did you just say it was going to, you think it would average $100,000 to $120,000, or what do you think the yearly, the impact would be yearly?
I think you're looking at somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 a year to maintain the plant for the next 5 years.
Okay.
Okay. Christine? John?
I just wanted to say thank you again for an excellent job in keeping this thing running, but also in maintaining the fiscal integrity that you have, and you've come under budget literally every time and have spent much less than anticipated. And for that, I am grateful and want to say thank you for doing a great job.
Thank you. And a lot of that credit goes to the staff at the plant because they've done a lot of that work in-house, welding, putting new valves in. We've done a lot of stuff in-house that saves some money, and they're very creative.
Noah? No questions? None for me at this point. I'll open it up for public comment at that point and then bring it back for discussion. Public comment is open for this item. Anybody would like to speak to it, please come forward. Seeing none, I'll close public comment and bring it back to council. Any comments? Mr. Pannoni? My mic, is that better? Okay, I'm still not... I'll have to drink some water or something to get in there. So I guess the question was, does anybody want to speak to this for public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back. Thank you. And for opening up for discussions, I'll just, I think I can reiterate some of the comments, Bruce. Really, having visited the plant, we're looking through a lot of the things that were laid out, and it's just a lot of work. I know you guys during inclement weather isn't always the ideal condition, so I just want to, thanks. I'm glad we were able to bring this back to us and basically evaluate the MMRP over the period that we were working through it, and identify the accomplishments and identify that, okay, it's time to close it, phase it out. We're on a path for the next part of the WRF. So I appreciate the staff report. Great staff report, very informative. And since we continue to visit, or at least we did continue to visit the MMRP on a consent staff report monthly, it was always informative, but at some point we had to ask the question, where are we going to go from here? So just want to say, thanks to you, the staff, and your crew, and I would compliment the creativity, because obviously you got a good crew out there. So those are my comments. And then Christine?
I think that we're all going to echo certainly compliments to Bruce as the leader of the team at the facility, and thanks individually to each person who gives TLC to an aging facility. I think another thing that's a benefit is having Mike Nunley's eye now in two directions, backward and forward, right? So he's working with us on our team to produce and to create the new WRF, but he knows very well our old existing system. So I do think that can give us confidence that he's not going to find work to do in a repair situation that isn't absolutely necessary, knowing that we need that plant to continue to exist to serve us all. So I think that's a unique advantage that we didn't have when we created the MMRP a few years ago. I think I have appreciated the monthly reports. They rarely ever got pulled. Matt did actually pull them, which I thought was great, because once or twice, because I think it brought our attention to how much work was getting done. I think that is important to recognize. We'll see it differently now moving forward, but certainly having that reminder to all of us and the public of how much is going on there every single month to maintain that critical infrastructure for us, I think it was a good reminder, and we'll continue to look for that information in different ways. And honestly, I would just close with appreciation and thanks for being very flexible with the system and the process and how this project has evolved. I'm certain the guys are looking forward to something new to work on and to learn about, rather than taking care of something that is so old. But we certainly appreciate it. Thanks.
And Mr. Mayor, I just want to add one more thing. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our small engineering staff for doing contract management, keeping a good eye on our contractors that we have working out there, and keeping change orders to a minimum, and us on budget and on time.
Thanks for recognizing them specifically. And I know when we say staff, we mean all of those, but I know you need to highlight everybody in there. So thanks for that, Matt.
No, I also would like to echo what's going on. I really appreciate, Bruce, the attention you give to this, looking backward and forward. And I know, speaking for the city, I think people are really confident in the handle you have on it. So thank you.
No?
Yeah, I did just want to give Bruce a chance if he had any other comments, if that's okay.
No, I would echo Rob's comments that the engineering staff has been very supportive of us, and they too have been creative in some of our solutions, and we wouldn't have been as successful without them. And I will reiterate for the public's sake that our goal is to operate the plant till the very last day at the highest level of efficiency and reliability that we can possibly bring forward in a cost-effective manner. So we will continue to bring proactive operations and maintenance ideas forward for your consideration, and we'll keep that old plant running as good as we can for as long as we can.
Great.
Well said, Mr. Keough. I think it is important, and you recognize it on a daily basis, because I can imagine the stress of being responsible for a facility that we all depend on, that protects the environment, and basically this town we wouldn't operate without. And you guys have done a phenomenal job of balancing that with trying to limit the cost to those that are only absolutely necessary. So I think we've been precautionary, and we'll continue to depend on your expertise and skills there.
Great. No, thanks. John?
Well, just to echo again my thanks and the inclusion of the other staff as well. Fantastic job. Thank you all.
Okay, so I guess really we just need a recommendation to phase out the MMRP as per staff recommendation as we get out of this report and per your recommendations. And so that would be the motion. And need a second for that?
Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Irons, second by Councilmember Heading. And any further comments or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for coming out, Bruce. Appreciate it. And we'll move on to item C2, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 600, adding chapter 8.17 to the Morro Bay Municipal Code, regulating the use of expanded polystyrene products within the city. And Miss Janine Burlingame, welcome.
Thank you and good evening. I have a PowerPoint presentation that is getting loaded right now, and please bear with me. It's my first one, so there may be some technological difficulties with me and this remote. Tonight you have before you ordinance number 600, regulating the use of expanded polystyrene. I'm not going to go into detail about the past stuff that you spoke about in your September meeting for the health effects, the environmental effects. You've already had that discussion. The first slide is really just kind of like a little timeline, the background. At your September meeting, you had directed staff your intent to pursue adopting an ordinance regulating the use of expanded polystyrene and to craft something and bring it back for consideration. Additionally, there was to be some outreach to the business community to find out, do they use expanded polystyrene, or are they using other alternative products right now, and to get some input on a hardship exemption that was talked about as well, if it was something that they felt should be included and at what cost percentage that might be. In early November, staff created a handout and a survey that was mailed out to affected businesses. It outlined that there was proposed regulation that might be occurring and had a kind of a draft of the ordinance as well. The survey was also, we created an online survey that they could do online as a way to make it easier for businesses to participate and provide information to the city. And additionally, our Public Works Advisory Board has had 2 meetings where they discussed this matter. The first was at their November meeting, where they discussed the proposed ordinance and continued that item until their January 20th meeting, as it would occur before council hearing the matter. And it would give time to get the additional input from the businesses, as the surveys had only been out for about a week and a half at that point. Subsequent to that meeting and before their January meeting, board member Stu Skiff was gracious to help out with city staff, and he went and walked and visited all the businesses that were affected. Well, most all. He didn't get to about 7 or 8 of them. But the vast majority of the businesses between mid or late November and mid-January, talking about the proposed ordinance and regulations that would be under consideration, and also kind of doing a survey of what products they may be using currently. And I'll get into a little bit more with the results from that shortly. And then finally, they had their second and final meeting last week regarding this matter, where they considered the draft ordinance that you have before you and made a recommendation to council. Thank you. So, as a couple of members of the public had commented during public comment, a couple of other cities within the county have already adopted ordinances regarding this. Slow City had adopted their ordinance in the summer of last year, with it becoming effective January 1. It prohibits the use of expanded polystyrene for prepared foods. It prohibited vendors and event promoters from selling or providing EPS products which were not wholly encased in another more durable material around it. It provided for a hardship exemption, and it was a one-time, one-year exemption, and it utilized a affordability criteria for qualifying, and in order to qualify, you needed to have your product cost for switching over from EPS to an alternative product be more than 15%. They had a deadline by which businesses needed to submit that application for a hardship prior to the ordinance taking effect, and they only had one business that applied for that. For those who, after the ordinance becomes effective, if there was any violations to be found, there was an in lieu component to it, whereby the amount of the administrative violation could be used by the business, if they so chose, to purchase the that same dollar amount in alternative product as in lieu of paying the fine and helping them to transition to away from the expanded polystyrene. And then their effective date was 6 months from their final adoption. The other city that has adopted an ordinance is Pismo Beach. They did their first reading in mid-November, had their final reading in mid-December, and it became effective January 15th of this year. It was virtually identical to the ordinance from San Luis Obispo, with a couple of differences. One being the effective date. They had it as 30 days after their final adoption, And the hardship exemption, they had one included, but they did a shorter period of time for that exemption. They made it 6 months. It was still a one-time only exemption, but they also didn't set an affordability criteria or really any specific criteria that would be required for qualifying for it. They really were leaving it up to the business to make their case, and in talking with staff, their view was you have larger businesses, smaller businesses, and what may be an okay percentage of cost for one business might really be a hardship for another. So they really wanted to get away from any specific criteria in that regard and let the conversation be between the business and the city making their case for that. And as far as for having a much shorter effective date of 30 days, they had indicated most of their businesses had already transitioned over to alternative products, and they felt that with the combination of that and the ability to apply for a hardship for 6 months, and that most businesses didn't have more than 1 or 2 months worth of stock built up, that they would need to work through, and transition over, that the shorter period of time was for them appropriate. So I mentioned briefly we had some of the outreach that occurred, the informational handout and survey that was mailed out. There were 30 responses that were received. This was a combination of paper surveys that were sent back as well as the online responses. 52% had indicated they already use alternative products, while 48% indicated they still used some form of expanded polystyrene product. We had asked a question: if a hardship exemption was to be included, what would be an appropriate percentage increase in the total cost of operating costs, not just the cost of the product, to qualify. And 38% were responding 10% or less, 23% responded between 11 and 15%, and 15% were responding between 16 and 20% for an affordability criteria. As was mentioned, we had a Public Works Advisory Board member, Stu Skiff, who had visited the businesses. He had a little different when he actually went out and surveyed what people were using. He was breaking it down by food containers and separate from the beverage containers. So what he was finding was 85% were using alternative products for their food, and about 66% were using alternative products for their beverages. So there's a little difference between the survey that went out and the kind of a little more detailed survey from the walking and visiting site visits. And I think that's attributed to the fact that when they're answering the question on the survey, it was combining both. And with Stu's survey of the businesses, he was breaking that down. So if somebody uses it for food but didn't for the beverages, that I think is accounting for the difference in the percentages from those two. He also noted that there was about 6% who were unaware that there were some proposed regulations that were going to be considered. So quite a majority of the affected businesses were aware already that something was going to be happening, and talking with Stu about what was being proposed. And since most of the businesses had already transitioned over, there didn't seem to be, or at least expressed concern at that point. He also did visit and speak with grocery store managers, as the other part of this is the expanded polystyrene products that they sell. And he was noting that the managers wanted to keep the products and keep selling them so long as their competitors were selling them. So once their competitors were going to stop, then they were going to stop. As far as the draft ordinance, staff felt that the City of San Luis Obispo's ordinance was a good one to use as a template, given the items that Council in your September meeting had indicated you would like to include in with it. So we had 3 different aspects of that ordinance that PWAB talked about in their November meeting and their January meeting. And the next 3 slides are going to go over that. The first is the hardship exemption, and we have several different options for that. One I'm terming the Slow City approach, with their one-time, 1-year exemption using 15% increase of their product cost to qualify for the exemption. The Pismo Beach approach, for a one-time 6-month exemption using no affordability criteria in order to qualify, and that the business would make their case to the city for consideration. And then the other 2 options are really kind of it's sort of a mix of the 1 year and the 6-month period, but using the results from the survey as far as a percentage if council wanted to include an affordability index. So the last 2 are either a one-time 1 year using 10% of the total the total operating cost increase, and then the fourth one is a one-time 6 months using a 10% percentage increase in total operating costs to qualify. Staff and the Public Works Advisory Board, after reviewing the information provided from the survey and from the site visits to the businesses, as well as talking with staff and getting some information from the City of Pismo Beach regarding their approach, felt that that approach was something that was desirable. It allows still the ability to have a hardship exemption, even though we saw in the survey results a lot of the businesses have already made that transition. It still allows for that for those who have not yet, and it, given the fact that most businesses don't have 6 months worth of product stored away somewhere, it's unlikely that you would need or want to have a longer term period for that. And both the board and staff like the idea of not having a specific percentage, acknowledging that there are businesses that are differing in size and may have different needs in terms of what would be a hardship or what wouldn't be. So that was the first item. The second relates to the what should be called the operational effective date. And that's the date by which, from that point forward, anybody found to be in noncompliance would be in noncompliance and have potential administrative fines at that point. So there are 3 options for the effective date. Typically, ordinances take effect after 30 days from final adoption, but given Council's past discussion in September of wanting to have enough time for businesses to be able to be made aware of any regulations that are occurring, to give them time to work through and transition over, and basically getting that compliance before the actual effective date, staff is not recommending, or the Public Works Advisory Board is not recommending 30 days. During PWAB's discussion in November, they had talked about not wanting to have that effective date occur during the summertime. They felt that that was a busy time for businesses and didn't want them to have to be worrying about transitioning out of a product and into something else at the same time. So staff took that into account when recommending an October 1 date, because we were projecting, given when council may hear this item, may have their final adoption for it, and counting 6 months out from that, that was the middle of summer. It was the middle of August. So we just bumped that a little bit further to kind of the end of our summer season at the first part of October. It provides enough time for notification to the businesses that are affected. It provides enough time for them to work through their existing stock and transition to alternative products. And it would be missing the summer season that was talked about by PWAB. However, after reviewing the information from the surveys and the site visits to the businesses, PWAB kind of changed their mind during their January meeting and are recommending a shorter period of time for that operational effectiveness, and instead are recommending May 1st as the operational effective date for the agreement. They basically came to this conclusion because most of the businesses are already using alternative products. and only a small percentage were not aware at that point in time of potential regulation coming forward. It still provides enough time for businesses to utilize existing product and transition over to alternatives, and you'd still be missing the summer season because it would be starting before the summer season. So that was the second item that was talked about. The third one is relating to non-city sponsored events. And the ordinance for Slow City and Pismo Beach had included this in there. And while council didn't actually specifically mention this or address this in your September meeting, it seemed logical from staff and PWAB's standpoint, given some previous directions that have been given to staff in the past. Specifically, an ordinance was adopted in 2008 where the direction was to not use city funds by any department or agency of the city to purchase styrofoam products, as well as discouraging the use by private parties who utilize city facilities. And then the pursuit of an ordinance to further regulate the use of expanded polystyrene products with relation to food containers and the retail sale. Staff felt it was logical to keep that component in there and is actually recommending to keep that in there. PWAB is making that same recommendation as well. So that language is in the current ordinance, and if you wanted to pull that out, you would need to make some direction to do so. With that, there's two recommendations. Staff recommendation is for council to review ordinance number 600, accept public comment, and to make a motion for the introduction and first reading of ordinance number 600 by number and title only. The Public Works Advisory Board recommendation is pretty much the same as staff's recommendation, with the exception of the shorter time period for the operational effective date. So Section 4 of the ordinance would change to read, "This ordinance shall take effect 30 days after its adoption, but not become operative until May 1st, 2016. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the council for any questions or comments and a recommendation.
Great staff report. Thank you. And open it up for questions from council. Dr. Heading, you want to start us off?
Thank you for the great report and all the work done. Great surveys as well. And to have a member of PWAB go out and visit businesses is exciting. So my first question is this: what do you know what the cost differential is between styrofoam products and the alternative?
They vary, and on the handout that we prepared and sent out to businesses, we had kind of provided a little chart that had included some of the alternative type of products and the cost between those and the expanded polystyrene products. And they really kind of varied. They ranged from anywhere from being 26, which I don't know about this, 26% less to 50% more between the expanded polystyrene and the alternative product for cups. For the clamshell containers, it ranged anywhere from 59% to 73% more expensive. So it just sort of depended on which type of alternative product you were using and what that difference in cost might be.
Okay. And to give some context, I did shopping where I normally do shopping a lot on Amazon and looked up what a clamshell food container costs, and we're talking 4 cents a unit in quantity. So these might be high percentages, but they're small, very small numbers on unit costs.
Great, good deal. And any sense of the average inventory on hand for those that do have product? 1 month out, 2 months out, 3 months out?
No, we didn't have that.
Okay, so we have no idea about how long that...
Anecdotally, Mr. Skiff did say that the establishments he visited didn't appear to have a large storage room full of styrofoam product that they were holding for use. They're just not that large of facilities to have large quantities.
Got it. I think that concludes my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Smuckler.
Yes, thank you. I just have one question. It's related to the concern about unfair competitive advantage between two similar businesses, say supermarkets or so forth, and one phasing it out and the other not. And I'm assuming, and would this be staff's comment to that the ordinance itself would address that and would keep us from putting one at an unfair advantage over the other?
Correct. With adoption of the ordinance, it becomes law, and all businesses would have to comply with that. It does, if you do include the hardship exemption, the 6-month period of time, that would give the ability for one of the grocery stores or one of the little mini marts who has some stock built up that may take a little more time to sell than a restaurant using that product. It would give them the ability to make their case to be awarded that exemption and give them a period of time in order to work through that.
And in that scenario, if a competitor felt it was that unfair or was creating that much of a difference, I suppose that they could apply for that similar short-term exemption, and that would equalize it, and we'd
Correct.
move on from that point. Am I right on that?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Matt, Yep.
Sure. Janine, in terms of if this law does go into effect, what sort of enforcement activities, how would that be done?
Well, I think what we'd like to see is compliance beforehand. So whenever we get final adoption from the council, we'd probably prepare something similar to the handout that we submitted through the mail to businesses, and let them basically turn it from this is proposed regulation to now this is new regulation, to inform them of any hardship exemption that might be included in with that and the process for applying for that. As far as long-term enforcement, I would think it would be similar to what we currently have, which would be through those calling in to let us know if there's some non-compliance with a business.
Christine.
Great. Thank you for that very thorough report. I don't think there's any stone unturned, Janine, tonight, so thank you. Question. I wasn't able to watch the PWEB meeting, and their minutes are not yet up for the November and January meetings. Could you give us a sense of the kind of public comment that you had, specifically from either the Chamber, the Merchants Association, or individual business owners?
The only public comment that occurred at both the November and the January meeting was from an individual from Slow Foam Free, who was in support of the of council adopting an ordinance. The comment was a shorter time period for effectiveness. They wanted it to be getting rolled out and getting going sooner rather than later. And then there was a member from the public who, Rick Deschler, who I believe had emailed all of council earlier yesterday regarding support for an ordinance and a shorter time frame for having that become effective.
Okay, great, thanks. And then it's not mentioned specifically, I don't think, in the report, but so did you get any, targeted feedback or specific feedback from any of our business organizations?
No, other than through conversations that board member Skiff had with them when he was on their site visits. Most of them were in support, expressing support for an ordinance. They were figuring, some were figuring, we're already doing it. It's not really going to have an impact on me. And they figured the regulation was something that the council was desiring to do, and it was going to be happening. It was just a matter of when that would occur. But there was, I'm not remembering Stu mentioning any real specific comments in a negative fashion. I think it was more just making sure that those who hadn't transitioned yet had enough time to do so.
Okay, and then on page 20, if you're looking at the staff report, it's page 4 of 6 or page 28 if you're online. And it's letters D and E, and it talks about foods prepared and packaged outside the city and sold inside the city as being exempt. And then also raw meat, fish, and other raw food trays are exempt. So in other words, what the public can expect, I'm just wondering, is you would no longer get your delicious food in a styrofoam container taking home from a restaurant, but likely if you go into a grocery store, you still would purchase this will still be in existence, that you'll be purchasing perhaps some raw foods on a styrofoam tray. That won't be, so some things won't be affected.
Correct. And this is more in relation to like the butcher counter where you go to get your pound of ground beef or the already pre-cut and selected steaks or whatnot that are packaged somewhere else outside of Morro Bay and are brought into the store. So this is really relating to that.
Okay, so those things, we have, at this point with this ordinance, we are not regulating any of those styrofoam, that usage of EPS in our community at this point.
Correct.
Okay. And you didn't see that in any of the other cities either? Because I'm assuming that we're all working on the same...
It's the same language as the other ordinances.
Okay, great. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I just have a question on page 4 of 6 in the report under exemptions. And I just asked the city manager about this question earlier. Just want some clarification under exemptions. And it says city manager or designee may exempt a food provider from the requirements set forth in this section for one single 6-month period. And just wondering if there needs to be a sunset clause in there because there's no trigger for that. So I know the ordinance says May 1st is the time, but I was just wondering if any language needs to be in there that there's a sunset to that, like December 2016 or something like that. Is the only question I have.
Because it ends up totally being within the city manager's discretion, I'm not sure you need to, but if you want to put a application filed by a certain date, we certainly could.
Okay. We'll leave that up for discussion. Just a note. Okay. That's the only question I have. And with that, I'll open up for public comment for anybody in the audience that'd like to speak to this. Please come forward.
Ken McMillan, business owner, Morro Bay. I have no problems. I know this is coming in and no issue, but I do want to make sure that you're aware. They said operating costs 10%. That was at the low end. Do you understand that? That's a chunk. That's like me telling you your property taxes, your utilities, your gas, and everything you do went up 10%. I don't think, I just don't want numbers to be bantered about without thinking what the impact is. And that was the lowest one, if I'm mistaken. What the businesses predicted as operating costs was 10%, and then it went up from there. That's not a trivial number. Yeah, 4% or 4 cents, Rob, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on that. I know I get them, and I know we're going to change. I have no issue with that. But again, with those things that we can impact a little bit more significantly, let's remember, those numbers are serious numbers, for a business. That's like just how it would impact you at home, Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Rosalie Valvo of Morro Bay. I am not speaking for Morro Coast Audubon Society tonight, but I just want to remind you that Morro Coast Audubon does support this, and we're also excited that Arroyo Grande is getting in on this tonight, in their meeting tonight. Anyway, I applaud Morro Bay City Council for taking this step to regulate the use of expanded polystyrene in the city. It is a vile product, convenient and cheap for commercial use, but lethal for the environment and its inhabitants, which includes us and a lot of other creatures. I further applaud the businesses that didn't wait around for the city ordinance. They went ahead and made the change themselves. But I remained appalled at the businesses that put profit before wildlife. I think specifically about the egg cartons I see in the supermarket, and I believe that these are from Rosemary Farms out of Santa Maria. Most of the cartons I would normally buy are styrofoam because it's cheap, I'm told. As I understand the proposed ordinance, These cartons would not be affected by it, nor would raw meat packages, though they still pose a hazard to the environment and wildlife. Thank you, City Council, for taking this step, but remember, there are still battles to be fought. And earlier, May 1st, is better than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalie.
Council, I'm Janine Rands from Slow Foam Free. I'm urging you to pass this as soon as possible, or the sooner the better, before your tourist season. California's watching. Since we started this effort, we've got cities all over California waiting. We have 20 cities that have a new ban since we started this in our own effort in San Luis 2014. So now we're at 90 cities in California. Costco, within a week of passing the ordinance, within a month rather, Costco's shelves were bare. Today, the 99-cent store, the dollar store, CVS, Rite Aid, grocery outlet are free of styrofoam. We're so thrilled, and we go in there and they go, yes. And most people, I want to tell you, most people are thrilled to get rid of it, and they know the dangers, the hazards, because we've been telling them. The landfill is waiting to get rid of this. Our own governor has launched an initiative. He calls it the 75% initiative. By 2020, which is 4 years from now, we're supposed to have reduced our landfill by 75%. Slow integrated waste management is waiting for us. We need 5 cities before they will approach the rest of the county. Our key cities that are unincorporated: Cayucas, Cambria, Oceano. We need those cities to be gotten by the county. California is watching as well. Californians Against Waste are alerted. The governor's office, we were ready to launch a statewide effort right now for Senator Monning, who has 3 of his counties under jurisdiction with styrofoam free. We decided to wait for next year because the threat of the plastic bag ban is back on the ballot this fall. Surfriders is watching. And next month, February 10th, the California Coastal Commission is going to be hosted here in Morro Bay. We would love that Morro Bay is one of our model cities of styrofoam free. And final, Manhattan Beach is the world's best styrofoam-free city. Urge you, if you have any questions, look at Manhattan Beach. They've just passed 2 years ago and got rid of straws, cup lids, and all cutlery. It's been banned since 2014. And they say we have no problem. They have 600 businesses that have signed on, and everybody's happy. So let's do it.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back to council for discussion. And Matt, you want to lead us off in discussion on this?
Sure. Reading the ordinance and listening to folks, in terms of, Janine, I don't know if you could answer this, in terms of staff with the recommendation of the time allotment that staff sees to implement this versus what PWAB recommended, could you explain the differences in time and what was staff's concept of needing that extra time?
At PWAB's November meeting, they had some discussion about the effective date and wanting it to make sure that it didn't happen over the summer. So when we were looking at a 6-month effective date from the time when council might have adopted the final ordinance, that was coming through about middle of August, thereabouts. So staff was just extending that period of time another month and a half, another 6 weeks or something to get that October 1 date. Then when the board came back in January, we had additional information from the businesses. It was known that the majority or most of them had already made the transition to alternative products. It seemed that most of them, the vast majority, knew that if these were regulations that were going to be occurring, that there wasn't a lot of product that would need to be utilized over a lengthy period of time before transitioning to a new product. So the board had kind of changed their mind on that term and wanted it to be shorter rather, and they were kind of saying it's out there, people know about it, it's going to be happening, make it happen sooner rather than later. So they shifted from what was, originally going to be that longer term period to a May 1st was the date that was thrown out. So it was probably about 2.5 months, a little shy of 3 months from when potentially, if the council takes action tonight with the first reading, when it would come back for second reading.
Thank you. I'll just make some comments. I think there's some questions about the timeline. First, I wanted to thank Stu Skiff for doing the walkabout. Really, I did a little walkabout myself. I didn't quite make the number that Stu did, but the reports I got as far as the timeline, there really wasn't an issue with the timeline. There's the inventory that's stored, at least from the restaurant side. I didn't visit the market side of the businesses, but the general consensus was May is fine. We're ready. Everybody's already preparing and moving towards that. Were the comments from the select that I visited. So I had my own concern on, the date and the time. So that was one of my key questions. Hey, is May enough time? Do we need to? And they're all like, hey, if it's next month, we're okay with that. So it kind of gave me some, comfort knowing that, May 6th seemed to be a reasonable date, at least for those comments there. I think the only other comment I had was, so the hardship part is on the PISMA model with no calculations and just a one-time, very simple. That's the model that we're looking at. Is that correct?
Correct. And
okay.
And just to add that if the council went that approach, then a business who may have stock built up and have a concern of being able to utilize it before transitioning over could apply for the hardship, and that could be part of their justification for getting that granted, is that they wanted to get all of that used up.
Okay.
And have the ability to do so.
Okay. I'll pass on comments and discussion. Christine, you want to have any comments?
Yeah. Sorry, I have to readjust my technology. Sorry. Great. Well, I appreciate the effort to get the word out and to talk to as many people as possible. Stuart Skiff did an amazing job pounding the pavement. I ran into him when he was doing it. I couldn't believe he was really doing it. It was incredible that he took that initiative. And it really helps everyone in the city, staff especially, and his board and the council. That just shows the commitment that he had to the issue and that he understands, things that we heard from Mr. McMillan, like, we're real people and these are real costs and real concerns. So I just want to applaud his effort on that. And then I guess I don't really need to belabor this at all any longer for tonight. I'm supportive of it, have been from the beginning, as our whole council has. So I'm leaning toward the May 1st, as you called it, operational effective date. That's where I'm going. And then, there's a lot on the staff report, and I just looking for like a really clean cut motion for us to make. So is the PISMO model that the mayor just asked about, that hardship model, is that's blended into the resolution?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm ready to support, of course, pay attention to what everyone else says here at the balance of the council, but I'm leaning toward May 1st, and that would be the only change then to what staff has presented us tonight. Is that the case?
Correct. And what you would be doing is recommending the Public Works Advisory Board's recommendation.
Yes, supporting that, and also supporting their deliberations on that, how they came back and shifted their focus. And the last thing, I don't really need to comment on this again unless, something changes down the line. But I just think as far as consumers, I appreciate that our businesses do what do their best to meet the needs of our visitors and our residents. And I think this is something that, truly all of us are starting to realize, like, we kind of understand inherently that this is really nasty stuff to have around us and our bodies and our environment. So I think that, I know it's appreciated that they've taken on that additional cost. I'm okay if you pass it on to me as your customer that, hey, customer, if you want this, recyclable, compostable material, then you might have to pay more for it. And I understand that. And I think most consumers do. There are obviously some folks that, perhaps don't have that latitude, but I think most of us want the best products we can have with, with our food and beverage. So I do appreciate our businesses, responding already to customer desires like that. And then I think for those who are needing to get there, I just appreciate the effort that they're making to do that. And then also I think that in terms of the things at the grocery store, if you look and see, a lot of packaging is going without any foam at all. Things are being shrink wrapped just in plastic. And I'm sure we'll find out in a couple of years that's really bad for us too. But reasonably, I think that, we all have a choice as consumers to vote with our dollars and where we spend our money. So, maybe we just need to make a little shift in our own, purchasing and ask for things to be wrapped in paper. Although I know sometimes that paper is coated in some kind of a wax, and I'm not sure that's recyclable. I mean, it can go down the rabbit hole on this, but I think we're making the right effort to take a product out of circulation that has been proven scientifically not to benefit us in any way. So those can be my closing comments, and I appreciate the efforts of people to advocate for this, and look forward to hearing what the rest of you have to say, but I'm pretty much done for this then. Thanks.
Great. Thanks. John?
Trying to think if there's anything else to say. I echo what Christine said. I do support the PWAB recommendation and timeline. I do understand the cost of goods sold issue that Ken is raising. And I do want to recognize that for the business folks that are out there, that will be passed on to the consumer. But like Christine said, this consumer is ready to pay that because this is nasty stuff. Having a degree in chemistry as well, it's bad stuff, and you've heard all about how bad it really is. Anecdotally, in my business. And I don't know how to ban this, but I receive 10 vials of injectable shingles vaccine in a box that is 3 feet long and 2 feet high that is styrofoam. And the drug is in the middle because it keeps it frozen, and they have to use styrofoam for that. And I don't know what to do with it, so that's my problem. But I support.
Noah?
Yes, I also support PWAB's recommendation, and noticed how thoughtful they were in both of their meetings in reviewing this. One of the items that was raised at the last meeting that I think we should encourage staff to engage with a couple of different groups on is the public outreach component. I think there's a really good message here that as we did with the water conservation item and distributing trifolds for tables and so forth to help the consumer and customer understand why this is happening and really celebrate forward action and being responsible. I think there's room for us to do that here. I think Ms. Goldman raised that at the PWAB meeting, and it's a good idea. And we should do that because we should be proud from the business side and from the community side of taking this action to take care of one of our resources and our public health. So I think it'd be nice to come up with something that's uniform that the businesses could utilize as a message point.
Okay, great. Any further discussion? Didn't seem like there was any need for sunset clause. There wasn't, there was no concern from you, so, I'm okay with it. I would take a motion for staff recommendation. City Council would review ordinance number 600, accept public comment, and make a motion for the introduction of first reading of ordinance number 600 by number and title only, adding chapter 8.17 to the Morro Bay Municipal Code relating to regulating the use of expanded pilot polystyrene products within the city, and to include the Public Works Advisory Board recommendation adding Section 4. This ordinance shall take effect 30 days after its adoption, but not become operative until May 1st, 2016.
So moved.
What was that?
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I was reading the motion, and so we have a motion by Dr. Heading and a second by Councilmember Smuckler. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Pardon me, I know there's people waiting. I just need to take a short recess. 5-minute recess. Pardon me.